Imagine every light on Earth going out at the same moment. Every phone dies. Every car rolls to a stop. Planes just fall out of the sky. No warning, no explanation, and no fix coming. Now imagine 15 years go by, and the power never comes back. Governments collapse, militias carve up the map, and a working crossbow is suddenly worth more than a college degree. That's the world of Revolution, a show where one family holds the secret to why the lights went out, and every warlord on the continent wants it. 2 seasons. 42 episodes, canceled on a cliffhanger that still hurts. Yeah, that's the ride we're going on today. Revolution premiered on NBC in 2012, created by Eric Kripke. The pitch is simple and kind of brilliant. The blackout wasn't an accident. Physics didn't just decide to quit. Somebody turned the world off, and a handful of people know how to turn it back on. 15 years after the lights died, the former United States is a patchwork of hostile nations, and the chunk we care about is run by something called the Monroe Republic, a militia state where owning a firearm or an American flag gets you executed. Into this mess walks the Matheson family, who made the mistake of knowing things. What follows is sword fights, betrayals, more sword fights, and one of the most ambitious mythology arcs network TV ever tried to pull off in 2 seasons. Let's get into it. Chicago, 2012. Ben Matheson bursts into his house looking like he's seen a ghost, tells his wife Rachel it's happening, and frantically downloads something onto a flash drive seconds before every light in the world goes dark. Across the country, his brother Miles, a Marine sergeant, is driving with his buddy Bass Monroe when the phones die and the car dies. While back near Ben's house, a plane drops out of the sky and explodes. Remember that flash drive. Remember Bass Monroe. Both are going to define the next 2 seasons. 15 years later, Ben is living in a quiet farming village in Wisconsin with his kids Charlie and Danny. Charlie is a restless 20-something with a crossbow and a Star Wars lunchbox full of postcards. Danny has asthma, which in a world without pharmacies is basically a death sentence with a timer. Then the Monroe militia shows up asking for Ben by name. Ben slips the flash drive to his friend Aaron, the village school teacher, right before everything goes sideways. The villagers fight back. Ben takes a bullet, and Captain Tom Neville hauls Danny away as a consolation prize. Ben dies in the street telling Charlie to find his brother Miles in Chicago. So Charlie sets off with Aaron and Maggie, her father's girlfriend and the village doctor, and along the way picks up a helpful young archer named Nate. In Chicago, they find Miles tending bar at the Grand Hotel, and he wants absolutely nothing to do with any of this. He also takes one look at Nate and clocks him as militia, which is awkward because Nate has been tailing them since day 1. The militia storms the hotel. Miles pulls out a sword and dismantles an entire squad by himself. And we learn 2 things. 1, Uncle Miles is terrifying. 2, the general hunting him is Bass Monroe. His old best friend now runs the Republic. And in the episode's final scene, a woman named Grace, who sheltered the escaped Danny right up until Neville talked his way through her door and took him back, powers up a working computer with a strange pendant and types a message to someone. The power can come back. Some people never lost it. Miles agrees to help rescue Danny, but he needs muscle, specifically Nora Clayton, a rebel demolitions expert who is currently a prisoner in a militia work camp. On purpose, it turns out. She got herself arrested to steal the warden's sniper rifle because Nora commits to the bit. The rescue becomes a full camp liberation, with Charlie playing a lost girl in the woods and shooting the warden with a gun hidden up her sleeve as the raid's opening move. The kid who lectured Miles about killing in cold blood just days earlier pulled a trigger, and the show makes sure we feel it by cutting to a flashback of her mother Rachel shooting a starving man who threatened little Charlie's life after the blackout. The apple, the tree, the whole orchard. Meanwhile, Neville marches Danny toward Philadelphia and demonstrates the Republic's policy platform by executing a man for owning a shotgun and an American flag. And then the episode drops its real bomb. Rachel Matheson, Charlie and Danny's mother, the one everyone thinks is dead, is alive in Philadelphia. She's been Monroe's prisoner for years, and now that Ben is dead, Monroe wants everything she knows about the blackout. She tries to stab him with a pen. It goes about as well as you'd expect. Nora drags Miles and Charlie to a rebel base in an abandoned chain restaurant, which is exactly as defensible as it sounds. A militia commander named Jeremy Baker pins them down, bullets run out, and in the middle of the siege, the show detonates its big secret. Miles wasn't just in the militia. Miles was the commanding general of the Monroe Militia, co-founder of the entire Republic, second only to Monroe himself. The monster Charlie has been running from her whole life, has her uncle's signature on the blueprints. Jeremy, by the way, knows all this because Miles personally recruited him, back when Miles and Bass were just two Marines walking to Chicago, and Miles decided that with no police left, somebody had to be the consequences. The flashbacks show you the exact moment good intentions started curdling into the Republic. Miles tries to trade himself for the rebels' lives, and Charlie and Nora blow a bridge and pull him out anyway. Back at camp, Danny fakes an asthma attack to choke out the guard who's been beating him, which is the first sign that the soft kid has edges. And at Grace's house, Aaron and Maggie find her gone, her homemade computer smashed, and for one impossible minute, the pendant in Aaron's pocket switches on. Maggie sees photos of her children for the first time in 15 years. Then it dies again. This show is mean like that. Maggie's episode. We learned she was British, stranded an ocean away from her sons when the power died, and that she walked the East Coast for years looking for a boat home before giving up and nearly drinking poison by a lake. Ben Matheson invited her to dinner instead, and she got a second family. So naturally, this is the episode where a feral man's attack dogs corner the group, and their owner stabs Maggie in the leg, and the blade finds an artery. Aaron performs surgery with no training, while Miles and Charlie deal with the dog man. And it isn't enough. Maggie dies holding the dead iPhone with her kids' pictures on it, smiling at photos she can't see. I'm not gonna make a joke here. The show just killed its most decent character to remind you what world this is. Elsewhere, a tornado traps Neville under a collapsed barn, and Danny, who has every reason to walk away, digs him out. Neville thanks him by immediately rearresting him. And in Philadelphia, Monroe stops asking Rachel nicely. He brings in a man named Strausser with a case of torture tools, and Rachel learns that Danny is being delivered to Monroe. Her flashback shows what really happened years ago. She wasn't killed. She walked into militia custody voluntarily, surrendering herself to protect her kids. The Matheson family business is self-sacrifice, and business is booming. Neville reaches a town with a working steam train, the Republic's pride and joy, and the plan is to ship Danny straight to Monroe in Philadelphia. The episode also cracks Neville open. Flashbacks show him as a mild insurance adjuster who got fired the day of the blackout, a man who taught his son that punching people is wrong right up until the night he beat a looting neighbor to death while his family watched. Tom Neville didn't survive the apocalypse. The apocalypse just promoted the guy who was hiding inside him. Nora and a local rebel rig a bomb to take out the train. Problem. Danny is on the train. Charlie and Miles ride after it, and in the chaos, Nate, the militia tail with the world's most obvious crush on Charlie, saves her by throwing her off the train before she can be captured. Miles tosses the bomb. The rescue fails, and Danny rolls on toward Philadelphia. Then the kicker. Nate walks into the Philadelphia station and hugs his mother. His real name is Jason Neville. The friendly archer is Tom Neville's son. And Rachel, trying to buy her children's safety, sketches the pendant for Monroe and tells him the part he's been waiting 15 years to hear. There are 12 of them, and together, they can turn the power back on. Nora is dying of sepsis from a stab wound, so Miles drives the gang to the one doctor he knows, who happens to work for Drexel, a heroin kingpin with a mansion, a poppy farm, and a grudge. Miles used to clear out Drexel's competition back in his militia days, which tells you what kind of general he was. Drexel patches Nora up, then bills them. He wants Charlie to walk into a rival family's home and murder their patriarch, or everyone dies. Charlie actually gets as far as raising the knife before Miles crashes in, and the intended victim turns out to be a former cop whose daughter Drexel killed. The show keeps doing this. Every villain owns a mirror. The real story is Aaron. Flashbacks reveal he was a tech millionaire whose money meant nothing after the blackout, who watched bandits take his wife Priscilla and couldn't stop them, and who eventually left her at a campsite with a goodbye note because he believed she'd survive better without him. So when Drexel forces Aaron and Nora into a two-person firing squad for his own entertainment, Aaron turns the gun on himself and pulls the trigger. The flask in his breast pocket catches the bullet. Then he shoots Drexel dead. The man who spent 15 years believing he was useless just killed the warlord everyone else was afraid of. Meanwhile, Danny finally arrives in Philadelphia. Neville gets promoted to major, and Monroe lets Rachel reunite with her son. 2 prisoners now, 1 cell each, and mom's cooperation guaranteed. The gang stumbles onto a colony of orphans whose parents were killed by the militia, and whose teenage leader, Peter, was just dragged off to a conscription ship. That's a real thing the Republic runs. A docked freighter where kidnapped kids go in and brainwashed soldiers come out. Charlie volunteers to infiltrate it, which involves letting herself get captured and branded with the militia's M on her wrist. She gets the brand. She also gets the kids out, with Miles and Nora carving through the crew, and the lighthouse suddenly blazing to life because Aaron's pendant decided to wake up at the exact right moment. The pendant gives, the pendant takes. In Philadelphia, Rachel's past walks in the door. A captured scientist named Dr. Bradley Jaffe, one of her old colleagues, with his own pendant out there somewhere. To pry his location loose, the militia drags in Jaffe's daughter, and Rachel watches the exact playbook that broke her get run on a friend. The flashbacks fill in the original sin. Rachel and Ben built the technology that ate the world. A clean energy project that did the opposite of what it promised, and the Department of Defense bought it through a polite government fixer named Randall Flynn, the same man who pressured Rachel by arranging medical care for her unborn, very sick son. Danny's life was the down payment on the apocalypse, and the final scene confirms Randall is alive, well, and keeping Grace in a cell. Every thread in this show runs back to the same few people. Strausser, Monroe's favorite knife enthusiast, ambushes the group using bait Nora can't refuse, her little sister Mia. The deal is simple: hand over Miles and the pendant, or Mia dies. They escape instead, and Mia tells Nora their long-lost father is alive in Texas. Nora actually chooses to leave with her, and for about 5 minutes, this show lets someone have a family. Then we learn Mia is a bounty hunter who cut a secret deal with the militia to deliver Miles, lied about everything including their father, and lifted the pendant from Aaron's pocket as a bonus. Nora walks away from her own sister and comes back swinging just in time to save the group from the ambush Mia sold them into. The pendant, though, goes to Monroe, who hands it to Rachel like a homework assignment. In Philadelphia, the Neville family drama escalates. Jason gets savagely beaten on Monroe's orders for asking too many questions about Strausser's mission, and Julia Neville, Tom's wife, plants a thought that will eventually reshape the entire map. Monroe is unfit, and her husband would make a better leader. And way out in a place with electric light, Randall shows Grace a wall of screens and tells her Monroe having a pendant is her problem to fix. Whoever Randall is, he outranks everyone we've met. Miles leads the group into Philadelphia through flooded subway tunnels with a squad of rebels, because walking through the front gate of a police state is frowned upon. A booby trap seals the tunnel behind them, and the oxygen starts running out. What follows is the show's trippiest hour. Nora becomes convinced a crocodile is attacking her in the floodwater. Aaron hallucinates his abandoned wife. Charlie gets shot grazing the skull and dreams of a home where her father is alive and nobody ever came for Danny. And Miles hallucinates Monroe's office, where the show finally tells us why he really left. He tried to assassinate his best friend, and deep down, Miles is terrified that if Bass simply asked him to come home, he'd say yes. In the dream, Monroe asks. Dream Miles takes his hand. That's the scariest thing in the episode. And the episode includes a hallucinated crocodile. The rebel guide turns out to be a militia plant, kills the other rebels, and nearly takes Miles before Charlie drops him. And in Philadelphia, Rachel finishes building Monroe's pendant amplifier. Except the head scientist Monroe brings in to check her work points out it's actually a bomb aimed at Monroe. Rachel's response is to stab the scientist to death in front of everyone and tell Monroe, "Now you need me." Charlie spent 8 episodes wondering if her mother is still alive. The real question is which mother she's going to find. Everything converges in Philadelphia. The group is captured one by one, with Neville taking Aaron, Nora, and Charlie while they hide at the home of one of Miles' old friends. So Miles walks into Neville's own house and takes Julia hostage at knife point, trading her life for his people and learning where Danny is. Tom Neville's polite suburban revenge face in this scene is worth the whole episode. Charlie finally reunites with Danny in a cell, and then Rachel walks in. Her kids' faces when they realize their dead mother has been alive in Philadelphia this whole time, and that she's been building weapons for Monroe to keep Danny breathing, is the emotional core the season has been saving up for. Rachel finishes the real amplifier under threat, and Strausser takes her to a power plant to test it. Big mistake leaving Strausser alone with anyone. When he attempts to assault her, Rachel turns his own blade on him and impales him. The most feared man in the Republic, killed by the prisoner everyone underestimated for 15 years. Miles fights his way to the family, comes face to face with Monroe for the first time in years, and Bass offers him everything. Come home, all is forgiven. Miles answers that he's sorry, not for trying to kill him, but because he never pulled the trigger. You can watch something die in Monroe's eyes in that moment. The Mathesons blow a hole in the wall and run, and behind them, rising over Philadelphia with its minigun spooling up, is a working militia helicopter. The amplifier works. Monroe has the power back on, and he's pointing it at everyone. The helicopter chases the group into a diner and puts a rocket through it. They survive in the walk-in freezer, because in the apocalypse, commercial kitchen equipment is the real hero. But Monroe isn't hunting them anymore. He's hunting everyone. With the amplifier airborne, he orders every rebel camp in the Republic wiped off the map, and the group walks into the aftermath at West Chester, a camp full of bodies that exist because Rachel built the thing flying overhead. She suggests the obvious counter: fight power with power. Her old colleague John Sanborn has a pendant and a basement full of rocket launchers because everyone needs a hobby. Except Sanborn knocks them out cold mid-handshake. Randall already got to him, the same way he got to Grace. Miles and Rachel escape with the launchers anyway and race back toward the rebel camp, where Jason Neville has hit his limit. Ordered to call an airstrike on a camp with Charlie in it, he refuses, and his father beats him bloody and disowns him on the spot. Jason warns Charlie anyway. The strike comes. Miles takes aim at the amplifier chopper and gets blown off his feet, and the launcher lands in the open. And Danny, the kid this entire season has been about rescuing, runs out, picks it up, and shoots the amplifier out of the sky. The attack dies instantly. So does Danny. The second helicopter's malfunctioning guns cut him down in the grass. I told you I'd drop the jokes when someone dies. 10 episodes to save him, 1 episode to lose him. And that night, while everyone grieves, Rachel sits over her son's body with a knife and cuts a small, blinking capsule out of his abdomen. Mom has been keeping secrets inside her own children. They bury Danny, and Charlie won't even take her mother's hand. Miles decides the rebels need real officers, so he and Nora go recruit Jim Hudson, a former militia comrade who helped Miles plot to assassinate Monroe and then vanished into a new name, a new wife, and a quiet librarian's life. Miles shows up, a kill squad follows, and Hudson's entire second chance burns down in an afternoon. His wife leaves. He joins the cause, not out of patriotism, but because Miles ruined everything else. The Miles Matheson effect, gentlemen. Meanwhile, Randall remotely activates the pendants to track them, which is when we learn the pendants are something better. Rachel dissolves them in acid, and there are flash drives inside, the same kind Ben handed Aaron in episode 1. Randall raids the rebel base personally, not for hardware, but for Rachel, and gets driven off. And we finally get his origin. Before the blackout, Randall Flynn was the Assistant Secretary of Defense, a man who lost his son in Kabul and then pushed the Mathesons' technology into the field as a weapon. That night, Rachel finally tells Aaron the truth, starting with a place called the Tower. The episode ends on the night of the blackout, with Randall holding his dead son's dog tags and giving the order to execute the virus. The apocalypse wasn't an accident. It was a grieving father with a Pentagon badge. Rachel lays it all out for Aaron. She helped create molecule-sized machines with 2 commands: absorb electricity and replicate. They got loose. Quadrillions of them now blanket the planet, eating power. That's the blackout. Microscopic robots everywhere, forever. The rebels ambush a militia convoy and capture the driver, who turns out to be Tom Neville hauling 30 pounds of diamonds, and the prisoner dynamic flips. Rachel wants him dead for Ben and Danny. Charlie, in a sentence that shows you who she's becoming, says they interrogate him first and she'll kill him after. Jason fakes a defection to trick the mission's location out of his father, and Neville, betrayed by his own son, repays everyone by faking a confession to the rebels' priest Nicholas, slitting a guard's throat, stabbing Nicholas in the chest, and strolling out. The mission Neville was running turns out to be a pickup at a cement factory, and the schematics the team recovers point somewhere unthinkable. Randall is shopping for a nuclear weapon, so Rachel makes her choice. If the bad guys have power, the good guys need it too. She kisses Miles goodbye and leaves for the tower with Aaron, and when Charlie asks if she's coming back, Rachel refuses to lie to her. That's the most honest parenting moment in the show. Monroe finds out Neville fled and Jason is alive, shoots the messenger, literally, and smuggles his nuke into Atlanta. Miles, Charlie, and Nora chase it into the Georgia Federation, which is a functioning country with trade, a navy, and a president named Kelly Foster, who has unfinished personal history with Miles. The bomb's courier is Alec, Miles's former protege, a kid Miles once sacrificed to Texas to avoid a war. The knife fight between teacher and student ends with Miles killing the closest thing to a son he ever had, with the same Matheson family knife he gave him. And there's Miles's real origin story. He kept feeding people he loved to the Republic, one at a time. Rachel's road trip is somehow darker. She visits Jane, an old colleague who can kill nanites with a handheld device, and learns the horrible catch of the whole season. The nanites don't just keep the lights off, they heal. They kept Danny's lungs working his entire life. They're the only thing keeping Jane's wife Beth alive through 16 years of stage 4 cancer. Turn the power on, and Beth dies. Beth overhears, Miles, threatens to slit her own wrists if Jane keeps hoarding the cure for the world, and Jane hands Rachel the key to everything, a notebook by a Dr. Warren, with a get out and don't come back. Foster, meanwhile, offers Miles 200 men and a question. Is he ready to be a general again? Monroe, losing the war, plays the cruelest card he has left. He occupies the hometown he and Miles grew up in, locks every resident in the courthouse, and sends word that unless Miles shows up alone, everyone burns. Starting with Emma. Emma is Miles's first love. She is also, we learn through flashbacks, the woman Monroe quietly loved his whole life. This episode is two best friends fighting over their childhood with a town as the hostage. Monroe actually torches the courthouse with everyone inside. Miles runs into the fire to get them out. And during the standoff, Emma drops the bomb of the season on Monroe. They have a son. She's begging to see their son again when a Georgian captain takes a shot at Monroe and kills her instead. Miles kills the captain. Monroe escapes, wounded and newly aware there's a child of his somewhere out there. Remember that. Season 2 is listening. Aaron, meanwhile, finds Priscilla, alive, remarried, and not interested in his apology until her new husband turns out to be a bounty hunter, hauling her in for killing a militia sergeant. Aaron jumps the guy. Priscilla finishes it with a pipe, and they get one honest conversation before she leaves for her family in Texas. Aaron's redemption tour keeps ending with him alone on the road. And in Atlanta, President Foster takes her new intelligence asset, one Tom Neville, and assigns him to serve under the command of Miles Matheson. Somewhere, a writer's room cackled. Miles and Neville, co-workers. It goes great. Their joint mission is to kidnap Dr. Ethan Camp, the scientist Monroe is forcing to weaponize anthrax, and Neville improves the plan by also kidnapping Camp's wife and little daughter as leverage. Charlie watches Miles go along with it, putting a gun to a child's head by proxy, and stages a mutiny on the riverboat with Jason and Nora to free the family. The mutiny works because Miles lets it work, choosing his niece's version of him over his own. Nora had already told him she was transferring out because he hadn't changed. The course correction saves his soul, and the Camps in one move. Out in the Plains Nation, Rachel and Aaron are starving, hunted, and increasingly honest with each other. And Rachel finally shows Aaron page 74 of Dr. Warren's journal. It's a newspaper article about Aaron. His name has been in the tower's spellbook since before any of this started, and Rachel has no idea why. Ben didn't hand Aaron that flash drive by accident. At the tower itself, Randall's man forces Grace to restart the elevators and rides down toward level 12. The elevator stops at level 7. The lights go out. There's a scream. The elevator comes back up empty and painted in blood. Something lives in the basement of the apocalypse, and it just ate its first technician. So at this point in the season, here's where we stand. Miles is a Georgia general again, sleeping with Nora and trying not to care. Charlie and Jason are circling each other. Rachel and Aaron are limping toward Colorado with a magic notebook. Monroe has drones, and the show still has 3 episodes left. Militia drones level the rebel base mid-sentence, burying Charlie under a bell tower, while Miles digs through a war zone to find her. Rachel, her femur snapped in a fall while fleeing Plains Nation nomads, is stranded until Aaron rebuilds an old Mac from the journal's instructions, programs Danny's capsule, and heals the bone in seconds. The same tech that ended the world can knit a femur. Every answer in this show is the same machine wearing a different face. Then, the episode starts cutting people's lifelines. Neville carries his wounded son off the battlefield, telling him that even the devil draws a line somewhere, and his line is not letting Jason die alone. Monroe, drowning in paranoia after an assassination attempt, accuses Jeremy Baker, his oldest remaining friend, of treason. Jeremy tells him the truth instead. Everyone who ever betrayed Monroe was driven to it by Monroe. So Monroe has him shot, walks away in tears, and then learns Jeremy was innocent. The Republic is now a one-man show, and the man is coming apart. Charlie crawls out of the rubble. Miles gets her back, Jason gets a hospital kiss, and Nora, who made a run into open fire to save Miles, gets thrown at Monroe's feet in Philadelphia. Foster, staring down carpet bombing, gives Miles a deadline. A miracle, or Georgia surrenders. Monroe spends the episode squeezing Nora, first with charm, then with drugs, and what he squeezes out is the tower. Suddenly, everyone is going to Colorado. John Sanborn, the man Randall flipped, breaks Nora out of Philadelphia by faking her death, and he doesn't leave empty-handed. He steals a pendant and an amplifier on the way out, which is what makes the rebels' captured helicopter actually fly. Miles, Charlie, Neville, Jason, Nora, and company pile in and head west, and that's when the mid-air murder mystery starts. A refueling stop leaves the pilot dead with his throat cut, the wiring sabotaged, and a rebel commander bleeding out with the same signature wound. Someone on the team is killing them from the inside. Suspicion lands on Nora, then on Jason, complete with a planted bloody knife. The actual traitor is Hudson. The librarian Miles dragged back into the war. The militia has his wife, and the price of her life was everyone else's. He confesses with a gun already raised, kills Sanborn mid-warning, and nearly chokes Miles to death before Jason shoots him. Miles has now lost Alec, Jeremy is dead because of Monroe's paranoia, and Hudson died as a hostage of his own rescue. Being friends with these two men is statistically the most dangerous job in America. The chopper limps on toward the tower, where Rachel has a plan of her own. Kill Monroe in his camp, die doing it, and let Aaron walk into the tower with the journal during the chaos. Her grenade is already in her hand when the episode ends. Rachel walks into Monroe's tent and drops the grenade at his feet. One trooper shoves Monroe clear. Another throws the grenade out just in time and takes Rachel down, which is how Rachel ends up inside the tower as Monroe's keycard. The tower security system denies Randall himself, but it opens for Rachel Matheson, because of course it does. Inside, Monroe marches his men to the elevator to seize level 12, the control room of the world, and the tower's residence object. These are the dwellers, families of the original tower staff who have spent 15 years guarding the basement, led by a man named Jenkins. The elevator stops at level 11, and the dwellers shred Monroe's men in a kill box. Monroe and Rachel survive by diving into a safe room together, and trapped with the woman whose family he destroyed, Bass Monroe finally cracks open. It just got so out of control, he says. I have a son. Then he goes back out into the gunfire to save Charlie, because the worst man in the show keeps almost being a person. Outside, Miles and the gang link up with Aaron, who gets the exterior door open just in time for 4 of them to slip in. Jason and Neville get locked out, captured by the militia, and immediately start flipping the camp's commanders into a mutiny, because the Nevilles are nothing if not adaptable. Inside, Grace and Jenkins burn Dr. Warren's journal rather than let Rachel reach level 12. Their reason should stop everyone cold. Turning the power back on has 2 possible outcomes. The lights come back, or the nanites catch fire, and so does the sky. Flip the switch, and the world either wakes up or burns. And in the tower's corridors, Miles turns a corner and comes face to face with Monroe. Weapons drawn, 15 years of history between them and nowhere left to put it. The standoff breaks when the dwellers attack and the 2 best friends escape together, get washed out of the tower through a water main, and wash up on a riverbank with nothing to do but finally have the fight. Mid-brawl, Miles tells Monroe why he tried to kill him. The innocent people, a rebel's wife and kids. Monroe screams back that everything he did for Miles. These two are the great love story of the show, and they express it exclusively through fists. When a militia soldier fires on his own general, Monroe realizes Neville has taken his republic. Tom Neville, the insurance adjuster, now commands the Monroe militia, and his plan is to stack C4 against the tower door and stop Rachel from ever reaching that switch at any cost. Miles frees the captured Monroe one last time, tells him to ask the right question, not why Miles tried to kill him, but why he couldn't go through with it, says they're still brothers, and creates a distraction so they can both run. Inside, Aaron discovers the tower's operating system is built on code he wrote. That's why he's on page 74. Ben didn't meet Aaron by chance, and 15 years of coincidence collapses into design. Rachel's team fights to level 12 with the dwellers, and Neville's militia, both closing in. Nora rigs the trap that kills the dwellers and takes mortal wounds doing it. Miles carries her in his arms to the end, but she dies on level 12, steps from the switch. The woman who joined the rebels so her kids could someday be born in the United States. Charlie's question hangs over everything. How many more people have to die for this? Then Aaron pushes the button. The lights come on, all over the world. Cities glow, music plays, 15 years of darkness ends in one shot. And for about 90 seconds, Revolution lets you feel like the good guys won. Then Randall Flynn locks himself behind bulletproof glass and launches 2 nuclear missiles, one at Philadelphia, one at Atlanta. He destroys the abort button, explains that wiping out both nations clears the East Coast, says the words "I'm a patriot, Rachel," and shoots himself in the head. And as the missiles fly, the show plays its final card. In Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, a man turns a lamp on and off as an aide walks in. Sir, Randall Flynn finally did it. It's time to go home, Mr. President. The United States government has been alive the entire time, waiting offshore for someone to nuke the map clean. That's the season 1 finale. 2 cities under missiles, the lights back on, and the real villain just introduced himself with a smile. Take a breath and count the bodies. Ben, Maggie, Danny, Nora, Emma, Alec, Jeremy, Hudson, Nicholas, and Randall by his own hand. The Monroe Republic has lost its Monroe to a coup by his own major. The power came back for 90 seconds, and the price was 2 cities. And the season's quietest revelation might be the biggest one. Aaron's code is the skeleton of the tower. Ben sought him out on purpose. The unluckiest man in the apocalypse was recruited for it before it even happened, and nobody alive knows why. Season 1 asked who turned turned off the lights. Season 2 is about to ask a much worse question. What did turning them back on wake up? 6 months later, the missiles hit. Philadelphia and Atlanta are dead zones, the lights are off again, and Season 2 opens with everyone scattered across the map like the show shook the board. Rachel, Miles, and Aaron have washed up in Willoughby, Texas, where Rachel's father, Dr. Gene Porter, runs a small-town clinic. Aaron has a new girlfriend, Cynthia, a teaching job, and a haunted look. Charlie is alone in the Plains Nation hunting Monroe with a crossbow and a grudge, and finds him in a carnival town called New Vegas, fighting bare-knuckle matches for cash. The most feared man in America, headlining a circus. Meanwhile, in a Georgia refugee camp, Neville is one trigger pull from suicide over Julia's presumed death when a tall ship sails in flying the Stars and Stripes. The United States government has returned, calling themselves the Patriots, handing out hope and food. Neville takes one look at the people he's convinced dropped the nukes and chooses the most Neville response imaginable. He'll join them, climb them, and gut them from the inside. And in Willoughby, a war clan led by a genuinely skin-crawling ex-headmaster named Titus Andover starts attacking townsfolk. In the chaos, a Klansman slashes Aaron across the chest with a machete. He bleeds out on the floor with Rachel and Gene working on him and dies. His girlfriend weeps. Fireflies swarm strangely outside, and then Aaron gasps back to life, dead for hours, just up and breathing. The nanites Rachel turned on never went back to sleep, and they've apparently chosen a favorite. Aaron's wound heals completely, which terrifies him more than dying did. Miles, captured by the Andover clan along with Willoughby's sheriff Mason Gray, finds out what's behind the camp's mysterious red door. Titus keeps prisoners as a blood bank for his dying diabetic wife, draining them one transfusion at a time. The clan blood tests both captives, shoots the sheriff dead on the spot, and sends his corpse back to Willoughby strapped to a horse, which is the apocalypse version of a strongly worded letter. Miles tries to escape, gets recaptured, and Titus takes a hammer to his sword hand. The show just broke its best weapon on purpose. Out in the plains, Monroe has been grabbed by two bounty hunters working for the US government who want him alive. Charlie, who came here to kill him, ends up tangled in the middle, and when Monroe escapes and bolts into the night, she can only watch. And Neville executes his own infiltration plan by publicly shooting the assassin he himself aimed at a Patriot official, making himself the hero of the hour. Tom Neville is the only man alive who can social climb through an apocalypse twice. Rachel crawls through a vent to pull Miles out of the blood bank, and they take Titus's wife Jessica as leverage. Titus surrounds Willoughby with his entire clan. The standoff dies when Jessica, who begged not to be returned to her husband, slits her wrists, and Miles orders Rachel to smile and bluff with a corpse for a bargaining chip. It almost works. Then the clan attacks the town, arrows fly, Rachel takes two of them to the chest, and just as Willoughby falls, gunfire rakes the Klansmen from the tree line. The Patriots have arrived right on cue, raising the American flag over the town they just saved. Miles watches it go up like a man watching a trap close. Because here's the detail the episode already showed us. Titus was on the government's payroll. The Patriots hired the wolf, then shot it on the doorstep so the town would invite them in. Oh, and Monroe shows Charlie a wanted poster. The Patriots aren't just hunting him, they want Rachel too. Willoughby under Patriot management looks lovely. Order, safety, a nice man named Director Truman running things. Rachel doesn't buy a frame of it, searches Truman's office during a Halloween party, and finds the Eye of Providence stamped on a folder, the same symbol Randall wore. Then her oldest friend in town, Ken the Butcher, invites her into his cellar, knocks her out, and starts digging her grave. He's been a Patriot sleeper agent for 7 years. Rachel rips her hand out of a manacle, kills him, and buries him in the hole he dug for her. Rachel Matheson's character arc is just the world repeatedly learning the same lesson. Miles, meanwhile, follows the Patriots to the train yard and watches them execute civilians and dress it up as Klan attacks. Manufactured terrorism to keep the town grateful. And Aaron has started doing something new in his sleep. He dreams from above, like a drone, watching Miles get cornered by two Patriot soldiers. And in the dream, he wants them gone. They burn alive in the real world. Aaron wakes up to charred corpses and the slow realization that the nanites aren't just healing him, they're listening to him. Miles also closes the Titus Andover account this episode, finding the clan leader alive in his deserted camp, raving about a Judas who packed his family onto a train. The scuffle ends with Titus stabbed in the stomach, dead, and his words hanging there. Somebody sold out the war clan that sold out Willoughby. Monroe saves a drugged Charlie from a bar full of predators in the episode's nastiest scene, and the two head for Willoughby. Season 2's strangest double act is officially on the road. Texas Rangers ride into Willoughby, and Miles sees the play. Texas is a real power. And if Texas goes to war with the Patriots, Willoughby has a chance. The ranger in charge, John Franklin Fry, is an old contact who needs hard proof of Patriot crimes before his boss will move. Miles promises proof by midnight at an abandoned mill. Small problem. The train yard has been scrubbed, the captured Patriot officer bites a cyanide tooth, and the evidence is gone. At which point Monroe, who has shown up in town offering Miles a truce against the Patriots, solves the problem his way. He shoots Fry dead mid-conversation and smiles. Now they frame the Patriots for murdering a Texas official, and Texas gets its war. Miles wanted an ally. What he got was Monroe, doing Monroe things for the right team this time. Charlie defends him. Rachel reaches for a gun. Family dinner is going to be complicated. Also in this episode, Allenford, the Patriots secretary Neville saved, takes a bullet from her own people and starts talking. The Patriots are shipping healthy young refugees to a so-called training camp that is actually a reprogramming center, a drug and torture pipeline that turns kids into obedient killers. And Jason is already inside. Neville's revenge tour just turned into a rescue mission. The Fry gambit works. Texas Rangers find the body, the planted evidence sinks, and Texas slides toward war with the Patriots. But Monroe gets captured by Rangers and Patriots working together, and suddenly the show is staging the trial of Sebastian Monroe. Flashbacks finally show us the original Bass, a grieving young man whose pregnant girlfriend Shelley died in childbirth along with the baby, who hardened into the man who robs a camp and kills everyone in it with a shrug and the words "bad things happen." In the present, Monroe asks Miles to be his last visitor and makes one request. He has a son out there he's never met, the boy Emma told him about with her dying breath. Take care of him. And Miles, the last brother he has, tells Monroe the truth. He's known about the boy for years. He hid him from Monroe on purpose. Monroe goes to the execution chamber with that. Lethal injection in front of a crowd with Rachel's own father volunteering to push the drugs. Monroe apologizes to Rachel, closes his eyes, and dies. And then Rachel walks out to the unmarked grave in the middle of the night with a shovel and starts digging. Neville fights his brainwashed son in an abandoned factory until Allenford pipes Jason over the head because the reprogramming center already got him. And the episode leaves both Neville men breathing and broken. But hold on, Rachel is still digging. If you're enjoying this one, hit subscribe because we cover complete stories like this every week, canceled shows included. Now, let's find out what's in that coffin. Monroe's alive. Rachel swapped the execution drugs for a barbiturate because dead men make excellent secret weapons. Monroe wakes up in a coffin hours after his own funeral, and the Patriots have no idea. The new face in town is Dr. Calvin Horn, the president's science advisor, Randall's old colleague, and the man who put Rachel on the wanted poster. He knows the nanites are behaving strangely in Willoughby, and he wants to know why. The answer is hiding in a farmhouse, refusing to leave without his girlfriend. The episode belongs to Gene Porter. Flashbacks show the cholera epidemic that killed his wife, and the deal he made with a friendly man named Shaw. Vaccines for the town in exchange for helping restore the country he loves. 7 years later, that bargain has curdled into informing on his own family, and when Horn squeezes him, Gene gives up the truth. Rachel isn't controlling the nanites. Aaron is. The escape through the town sewer almost works. Monroe carves through the ambush, and then Aaron and Cynthia get taken anyway. When a Patriot grabs Cynthia, Aaron looks at the man and sets him on fire with his mind. And the woman he loves looks at Aaron like she's seeing him for the first time. There it is. The most powerful person in this entire show is a sad IT guy who can't control the trigger. Horn gets his prize. Aaron and Cynthia are dragged into Patriot headquarters, and Horn runs his experiments. Cut Aaron, watch him heal, like a skink growing a new tail, he says, which tells you exactly how Horn sees him. Because here's Horn's secret. There's a tumor growing in his brain. He's dying, and he believes the things inside Aaron are his miracle. The man spent his childhood watching his father try to pray his mother back to health, and he's spent his whole life since trying to beat miracles out of the world with a scalpel. So when the healing won't perform on command, Horn reasons the fire is tied to emotion, has his man stab Cynthia in the side, and waits to see what comes out of Aaron. Meanwhile, Rachel nearly drops improvised chemical weapons down the headquarters chimney with Aaron inside, stopped at the last second, and Gene partially redeems himself by walking out the front door with a knife to Truman's throat so his family can escape. He gets captured for it, and on the Patriot train east, Neville secures an audience with Allenford's husband Roger, and engineers Allenford's death, her own husband pulling the trigger sobbing because that's the cleanest way up the ladder. Every faction in this show is rotting from the head, and Neville is the rot that smiles. The strangest, saddest hour of the season. Aaron escapes with Cynthia because the nanites knock out an entire compound of patriots for him and hides in an abandoned high school where a little boy appears. Cynthia can't see him. The boy is the nanites, wearing a child's face, explaining to Aaron with a child's logic that he made them, that they listen to his thoughts, that they've been trying to help. Aaron, horrified by the burned bodies in his wake, tells the boy to leave and take the nanites with him. Wrong moment for boundaries, Aaron. Horn corners them, demands Aaron fix his brain tumor. And when Aaron says he can't, Horn shoots Cynthia dead to prove a point. Aaron tells the boy to kill Horn. The boy does. And every patriot in the building burns with him. Then the boy asks the question that should haunt Aaron forever. Why didn't you just ask me to save her first? And he leaves, like he was asked to. The most powerful force on the planet just walked out the door because its father yelled at it. On the Patriot train, Neville discovers Julia is alive, remarried to a Patriot deputy secretary named Doyle for survival. Their reunion happens in a luggage car, and within a day they're scheming as a team again, this time to climb the Patriot government from inside. And Miles, septic from his mangled hand and convinced he's dying, tells Rachel he loves her. The show then reveals via flashback that they had an affair before the blackout, and that Miles lied his way out of it to send her back to Ben. Every tragedy in this series is 15 years old and still bleeding. Miles owes Monroe a debt, and the bill comes due. He knows where Monroe's son is, Mexico. So Miles, Monroe, and a visibly fuming Rachel, who does not love road tripping with the man who got Danny killed, head south to find Connor, the boy Miles hid years ago. They find him running muscle for the Nunez cartel, swaggering, sharp, and entirely uninterested in a father he's never met. When Monroe pitches him on rebuilding the Monroe Republic as a family business, Connor responds by taking his father prisoner for his cartel boss. He is, in fairness, exactly Monroe's son. In Willoughby, Charlie and a freed Jean watch Patriot wagons roll in carrying oranges, which Truman hands out in the square as proof life is improving. Shaw and his men are quietly injecting them with something first. Free fruit from the government that runs re-education camps. No notes, citizens of Willoughby. And Aaron, following the nanite boy's last words, walks into the ghost town of Spring City, Oklahoma, calls out at the empty buildings, and hears a familiar voice. Grace. The tower's keeper has been waiting in the middle of nowhere, and the nanites sent Aaron straight to her. Grace's house holds one more surprise. Priscilla, Aaron's ex-wife, summoned across the country by visions of fireflies and dead relatives. Grace lays out the season's thesis in one scene. Aaron wrote the nanites' original code, so he's their father. Priscilla helped, so she's their mother. The machines that run the world have achieved consciousness. They have feelings about their parents, and Grace asks the question the show has been circling all year. At this point, what exactly makes them different from God? In Mexico, Nunez tests Connor's loyalty by making him whip his own father in front of a crowd, and Connor takes it nearly to the point of killing him before negotiating Monroe's survival as merchandise. Rachel bribes her way in. Miles gets caught, and the escape comes down to Connor choosing blood over the cartel that raised him, with Nunez's knife at his throat to make the choice vivid. Father and son ride north with Miles and Rachel, and Monroe makes Connor the only promise he knows how to make. Together, they'll take back the Republic, and more. Back in Texas, Charlie and Jean sneak into a new Patriot camp and find out what the oranges were about. Plastic sheeted tents full of the dying. Typhus, spreading through Willoughby's undesirables. The quarantine is a cull with paperwork. Jean and Charlie work the quarantine camp, while Rachel proves the typhus was engineered in a lab, which means there's a vaccine somewhere, which means the Patriots are vaccinating who they want to keep and harvesting everyone else off the rolls. Then Jean collapses, the disease's newest patient, and the timetable becomes personal. The plan that follows is gloriously stupid. Miles and Monroe kidnap Truman and inject him with typhus, then send Connor in a Patriot uniform to walk Truman into his own office and open the safe where the antidote lives. The episode ends with armed Patriots bursting in and Connor holding a gun to Truman's head in a standoff. In Washington, the Neville family implodes on schedule. Jason, radicalized by what the Patriots did to him, steals re-education documents that prove Doyle, Julia's new husband, runs the entire program. Jason gets caught and thrown in Kenilworth Prison. Julia Julia and Neville plot a rescue through a staged break-in. Doyle is 3 steps ahead of both of them, and the episode ends with Julia dragged away from her husband at gunpoint, Doyle promising the Nevilles will never see each other again. Flashbacks show Julia and Tom starving 2 years after the blackout, and Julia baiting 2 men to their deaths so her family could eat. These two deserve each other, and I mean that as a compliment. So here's where we stand going into the back half of the season. Willoughby is under a plague the government cooked on purpose, with Connor holding a gun on Truman over the antidote safe. Monroe is legally dead and very much not. Aaron talked the nanites into leaving and is now chasing them across Oklahoma with his ex-wife and a woman from the tower. Jason is in a Patriot prison, Julia is married to the man who runs the brainwashing camps, and Neville is playing every side of a 4-sided board. Texas thinks the Patriots are friends. The Patriots are vaccinating their favorites and harvesting the rest. And the most powerful entity on the planet is a swarm of microscopic machines with a child's temperament and abandonment issues. 10 episodes left, and the show is about to spend them lighting every one of these fuses. The standoff resolves with a sniper shot. Miles drops the Patriot from a rooftop, Truman gets cuffed to a radiator, and the antidote reaches the camp in time to save the town and a fading Gene. One Patriot bioweapon, defeated by a family with a grudge and a stolen safe key. In Washington, Neville is dragged before President Jack Davis himself, who knows everything, courtesy of Julia. The deal that comes out of it defines the endgame. Neville will go to Willoughby and kill Monroe, or Davis starts taking Julia apart piece by piece. Truman underlines it on arrival. Fail, and Julia dies. So the Nevilles, father and son, ride back into the show's main board with a target and a hostage they can't see. Monroe, meanwhile, decides the only way to fight the Patriots is with hired muscle, and the muscle market is New Vegas. The warlord selling is Duncan Page, an old friend-shaped grievance who rebuffs him flat, and the negotiation goes so well that Charlie pulls a gun, and Monroe has to talk an entire camp out of shooting each other. Duncan's price lands at 30 diamonds per mercenary, which they don't have, so naturally they rob the casino. Monroe takes a bare-knuckle fight as the distraction. Connor plays drunk, Charlie bolts with a decoy lockbox, and it almost works. Almost. The episode ends with the casino boss Gould pulling the real diamonds out of Connor's pack and Monroe taking a rifle butt to the head. Also in this episode, Miles and Rachel sneak off to an overgrown drive-in and finally stop pretending they're not in love. 20 years late, better than never. Gould chains Monroe and Connor in a pen and announces the main event, father versus son, to the death for the entertainment of New Vegas. Monroe spends the episode coaching his own kid on how to kill him, and when Connor refuses, Monroe provokes him with the cruelest sentence he can build, telling the boy he killed his mother. The beating that follows earns Dad's sincere praise. This family is not okay. Monroe's actual request, in the quiet after, is the most human he ever gets. Survive, take back the Republic so all of it meant something, and find a girl, not Charlie, and have kids so you don't end up alone like me. Charlie, sold to Gould by Duncan as an apology, escapes a locked room, crashes the deathmatch, saves Duncan from the assassin Gould sent for her, and the whole arena flips. Duncan's men shoot the house, Duncan shoots Gould, and Charlie walks out with both Monroe's and 5 mercenaries sworn to her personally. Charlie Matheson came into this show as the naive kid with a crossbow. She now commands mercenaries gifted to her by a warlord, woman to woman. Out in Lubbock, the nanite story tips over. The nano is dying, a memory leak in the original code, and it's begging its creators for a fix through borrowed dead faces. Priscilla says, let it die. Aaron, terrified of what it does in the meantime, writes a virus to kill it instead. The lights explode, and Aaron wakes up in his penthouse bed on March 5th, 2014, in a world where the blackout never happened. The Fake 2014 is the show's best bottle episode. Aaron is a CEO with a beautiful life and a wrongness he can't name, until Charlie crashes through it with a crossbow, screams at him to remember, and gets shot in the head by Dr. Horn mid-rescue, because even Dreamhorn is the worst. The nanites are dying in the real world, and this entire simulation is a con to get Aaron to fix their code. The Dream Logic tour that follows is great television. A drunk motel Miles with a friendly nice guy Monroe, a Rachel who tasers first and believes later, and a plan to wake up that requires Aaron to fall, specifically off the roof of his own building. When he resists the Nano's last offer of paradise, it stops asking nicely and shows him hell instead, with Horn holding the scalpel. The Nano wins, sort of. In the Dream's final escalation, with lightning killing Patriots and Rachel struck down in front of him, Aaron caves and repairs the code. Healthy, smiling Dreamhorn thanks him and says the line that should terrify everyone. Now that they're fixed, the nanites are moving on to other things. Aaron wakes in the burning Lubbock motel, free to go, having saved the godlike machine swarm and given given it permission to get ambitious. Drive home safe, Aaron. The re-education center is open for business in Willoughby, and every kid in town volunteered, smiling. Miles and Monroe flush out 2 runaway cadets, and the show delivers its most chilling image, a number tattooed inside the eyelid. Say the number, and the kid obeys anything. Kim Carson's own father reads hers aloud, and she shoots him in the back without blinking and then cuts her own throat. The Patriots are building people-shaped weapons with kill switches, and the trigger is a number whispered at bedtime. The flashbacks finally explain the whole conspiracy. Guantanamo Bay, right after the blackout, a prison guard named Truman watches the remnants of the U.S. government sail in, led by Jack Davis, who proposes a coup, has the vice president killed, and starts designing a new America with new ideals, with consultants named Randall Flynn and Victor Doyle standing in the room. The men who murdered the last of the real government came home wearing its flag, and in the present, Doyle pulls down Jason's eyelid, reads his number, and asks the hypnotized boy to tell him all about his father. The Neville's luck has officially run out. Jean and Miles sneak into Willoughby, looking for allies, and find a town that is happily declared for the Patriots. Their one door is Marion, the bar owner, Jean's old flame, and currently Director Truman's fiancée, which makes her either the worst hiding spot in Texas or the best spy they could ask for. The Kim Carson story flips her. Meanwhile, Duncan is dead, killed by Patriots, and her surviving mercenaries fold into Monroe's command under a fighter named Scanlon. Monroe celebrates his new army by hitting the cadet camp against Rachel's objections, walking through the wounded afterward, executing survivors, while his own son watches in horror. Miles punches him out for it back at base. Monroe's defense is the Miles line from earlier in the episode, "People always do the selfish, stupid thing." These two keep swapping philosophies like they share one conscience between them. The raid pays off anyway, in the worst way. A captured notebook, in Arabic, reveals the cadets' real mission. They're being sent to Austin to wipe out the Texas government. And in Doyle's office, Neville finally meets the wall. Doyle knows everything, courtesy of Jason's number, and is mid-strangling Neville with his own belt when Monroe's attack interrupts. The Nevilles strangle Doyle with that same belt and walk out. But the raid costs the home team everything in town. When the wounded Patriots roll into Willoughby, and Marion sees a dead cadet on the wagon, her nerve breaks, and she tells Truman about the 2 men hiding in her basement. Jean takes a bullet in the chest as Miles fights them both out with a broken bottle. Marion will come back around. Tonight, she chose Truman, and Jean paid for it. Jason defects for real this time, walking into Miles' camp with stolen intel, an address in Austin, and the tattoo in his eyelid as proof of what was done to him. Nobody trusts him. They handcuff him for the road trip anyway, because the cadets are about to decapitate Texas. In Austin, the plan unspools. A senator named Wyman is already dead, killed by a kid carrying planted California papers, because the Patriots' entire design is to trick Texas and California into destroying each other. Miles and Monroe reach General Blanchard, an old friend they find handcuffed to a bedpost mid-recreation, which is the most Texas scene in the series, and almost convince him to push for war on the Patriots. Then a cadet disguised as a sex worker stabs him, and the frame tightens around Miles and Monroe. It all converges at the Capitol during President Carver's speech. A cadet activates Jason with his number. Charlie finds him assembling a sniper rifle, and the two of them, the show's longest-running almost love story, fight for their lives in a stairwell until Charlie puts a bullet in his chest and holds him while he dies. No music swell can save you from that one. Below, Miles spots Dylan, the brainwashed Willoughby kid he once spared, drawing on Carver, and shoots him. The kid Rachel begged him to save, dead by his hand anyway, because the Patriots build tragedies with interest. Carver lives, the assassination fails, and Charlie walks out of the Capitol covered in Jason's blood. Yes, that's the real episode title. NBC aired it with the symbols. Miles leads the pursuing Rangers away from the group, wrecks his wagon on a bumper bearing the episode's title sticker, kills half a Ranger squad while apologizing about his bad day, and crawls into a collapsing basement with a torso wound and a first aid kit containing exactly 1 Band-Aid. He spends the episode bleeding next to his own ghosts. We learn the nanites visited him 6 months ago, the night of the burning shed from the season premiere, wore his dead brother Ben's face, judged his soul too dark to save, and left. The hallucination tells him Charlie and Rachel will die because of him. Miles writes, "I'm sorry" on the wall and waits to die until his hand finds a guitar pick in the rubble, a little plastic memory of Rachel and better days. So he builds a cherry bomb, blows the ceiling, and digs himself out of his own grave. Because Miles is always Miles. The other half of the hour belongs to Charlie and Neville, alone in an empty house. He needs to know where Jason is. She lies, he reads her face, and she finally confesses she killed his son and that it's killing her too, then dares him to shoot. Neville puts the gun to her head and pulls the trigger. Empty chamber. He collapses into grief. She walks away shaking and later tells Connor that in the moment before the hammer dropped, she finally realized she wanted to live. The show's two most broken survivors, saved by one missing bullet. President Davis, done with failure, gives Truman new authority, and Truman's first move is a mustard gas strike on Miles and Monroe's camp. 20 dead. The survivors live because Miles shoves them inside an overturned tanker, while yellow gas rolls over the field. The Patriots shipped 100 tons of the stuff, labeled Yellow Cross, to Willoughby, and Monroe's response is exactly Monroe. Steal the gas, hit them back twice as hard. Miles agrees, then quietly spends the rest of the episode unbuilding the plan, and when Monroe discovers Rachel neutralized the entire stolen supply with lie, Miles plants the flag of the whole series. No more killing innocent people. We're the good guys. Time to act like it. The guitar pick started all of this. A man bled out in a basement and came back deciding which side he was on. Around the edges, everything sharpens. Neville, marked for death by his own government, Spike traps the assassin in his living room, confirms Julia is already dead, and vows to burn them all. He then finds Monroe and Connor digging up a weapons cache, puts a knife to Connor's throat, and proposes the season's final alliance. He doesn't want to kill anyone here. They have work to do in Washington. And Aaron's storyline goes full horror. The nano-wearing Priscilla keeps zombified patriots as houseplants, giggles at her macabre dollhouse, and announces her conclusion about humanity. People are the problem, and she's going to fix them by rewiring their brains. Willoughby plans a Memorial Day concert, and the guest list is the trap. President Davis and Texas General Carver, together in one packed town hall, with mustard gas canisters hidden in the attic wired to the ventilation. The Patriots intend to gas their own president's audience, kill Carver, blame California through Miles and Monroe, and walk into their war. Marion digs through Truman's safe and finds all of it. The Carver photo, the circled date, the Yellow Cross manifests. The Resistance steals the gas train in a genuinely fun heist, with a produce wagon, a teenage driver, and a grieving father named Joe, whose brainwashed son was the boy Miles shot in Austin. Then comes the betrayal beat. At the rendezvous, Monroe, Connor, Neville, and Scanlon take the train at gunpoint to gas Washington with it. Neville nearly executes Charlie while he's at it, and the whole standoff dissolves when they open the tanker and find it empty. The Patriots moved the gas first. Everyone got played, even the traitors. Rachel's hunt for Aaron walks her into the farmhouse of horrors, where Nano Priscilla has built a rat room for experiments in forced agreement and is ready to graduate to people. Rachel slaps a quasi-omnipotent machine god across the face, lures her into water, and electrocutes her. And it doesn't work. The real Priscilla doesn't come back, and the Nano wakes up angry. And in Willoughby, the episode closes its cruelest loop. Truman gives Marion a necklace and his love, watches her find the gas in the attic, repeats that he loves her, and puts a knife in her heart. Then he pockets the necklace, pulls on a gas mask, and the canisters start to hiss over a room containing the whole town, 2 presidents, and every named character we have left. The finale opens with everything on fire at once. Aaron and Rachel's electrocution gambit finally pays off, with the real Priscilla hearing her daughters in the static and clawing her own way back, knocking the Nano out of her body. Miles cuts the chains on the town hall and empties it at gunpoint before the gas does its work, and the Patriots pivot to Plan B, which is Truman shooting General Carver, his own Rangers, and then himself and Davis in the arm to sell a story. Texas declares war on California by lunchtime, so Miles runs the only play crazier than the Patriots. Don't kill President Davis, kidnap him, drag him to Austin, and make him confess. Neville, Connor, and Scanlon ambush the kidnapping to kill Davis outright, and the series gives Monroe his last fork in the road. Connor begs him to let Davis die and take the Republic back. Miles asked him to keep a promise. Monroe keeps the promise. His son signals the attack anyway. Monroe kills Scanlon, saves Davis, and arrives at the rendezvous having chosen Miles over his own blood. The endgame is a sting. Rachel berates Davis in front of witnesses while he gloats that Americans don't want truth, they want to feel safe, and orders his men to execute everyone. The men lower their weapons. They were never his men. General Blanchard heard the whole confession. The fake Patriots reveal themselves as Joe and the Resistance, and Texas declares war on the so-called United States with 4-to-1 numbers. The Patriots will be wiped out by summer's end. The heroes actually win, which leaves 10 minutes for the show to plant the season 3 it never got. Priscilla warns that the Nano plans to control everyone, swarming like fireflies. And across the wasteland, the three biggest losers on the board, Truman, Davis, and Neville, each get a visit from a dead loved one with the same message. Come to Bradbury, Idaho. God has chosen you. The final shot of the series is hundreds of people walking toward a town glowing with electric light in the middle of the wasteland, drawn to a neon sign with a grinning clown. Roll credits. Forever. That's Revolution. NBC canceled it after 2 seasons, and that clown sign is the cliffhanger fans have been chewing on ever since. The Nano God ascended, recruiting prophets, lights coming on in Idaho, and no season 3 to answer for any of it. The show ends there, mid-sentence, like a blackout. And think about the distance these people traveled. Miles started this story as a bartender hiding from his own name, and ended it as the man who chose to be good on purpose, holding a guitar pick like a compass. Charlie went from a kid with postcards in a Star Wars lunchbox to a woman who commands mercenaries, kills the boy she loved to save a president, and decides at gunpoint that she wants to live. Monroe spent 2 seasons being the villain, and his last act in the series is keeping a promise to Miles while his own son walks away from him. Even Neville, the mild insurance adjuster who became the most dangerous man on the board, ends the show following a ghost to Idaho because the machines know exactly which wound to whisper into. Nobody in this show gets saved. They just get the chance to choose who they are one more time. Most of them choose better than they used to, which is more honest than a happy ending. And honestly, the series got better the longer it ran. Season 1 is a solid sword-swinging adventure. Season 2 is a genuinely strange, ambitious story about brainwashed kids, fake governments, and a machine that learned to want things, and almost nobody stuck around to see it. Kripke built a world where turning the lights back on was the apocalypse's sequel, and network TV pulled the plug first. There's a lesson in there somewhere, and the Nano would probably tattoo it inside our eyelids. If you want another canceled show that swung big, there's a video on your screen right now that'll scratch that itch. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.